eQuills, building and nurturing a community of learning, collaboration, and shared abundance.
Welcome to another episode of the eQuills podcast. Joining us today is Digital and Social Media Manager of SABC3's Afternoon Express, Zoë Human. She talks all things social media and shares how you should use platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to boost your brand.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me and giving up your Fridays, or maybe it's more me giving up my Friday, but either way, thank you for joining. What is the level of proficiency typically with everyone in terms of social media knowledge? Yes, no, how in the middle, so and so. Okay, so you're versed, but maybe not
varied.
Varied very much. So I'm going to be talking about myself and social media, and I'm sorry if I sound conceited in the process, but I suppose social media does force you to have a certain level of hyping yourself up, I guess. I started with social media way back in the day. Probably grade 9 is when I really started getting a passion, and it was obviously very, very small. If you can see those photos in the background, that was where I started out on Instagram with the highest of 9, which is my likes, okay, for this photo over here. And I think that's probably one of the biggest fears that most people have when it comes to social media, is where to begin. It's sort of this concept of, I need to constantly create, or, I need to constantly be posting. And yes, while I think that really does help, I think for the most part, you could put anything anywhere and it could still have impact. So I'm going to be referring mostly through this presentation to 2 main sites that I have on my phone, which is one, my personal account, and then that of Afternoon Express, which is obviously my work account. As you can tell, the numbers in terms of Afternoon Express are far, far higher than that of my personal account, although I'm very proud of my personal account numbers too. And typically, when you look at those numbers, you would think, hey, the higher the amount of followers, the better the engagement, the better the reach, the more people who are actually going to want to follow you. But that isn't always the case. So here's just a little of a comparison for you. If you were to look at these images over here, I calculated the amount of likes. In total, all those images came to 501 likes. Well, if you were to compare it to my personal feed, it would receive 1,641. Already beating this entire bit of content with these 2 images over here. And I think that is also why a lot of brands nowadays are more so going for micro-influencers. Micro-influencers being people who tend to have around 5,000 followers. It means that they're engaging, they create content that people want to see, but their niche is still small, it's still growing. And it also means that they're more attainable to audiences and to brands, so they're cheaper too. So that's how I've gotten campaigns with brands like Essence and The Body Shop, to name but a few. So really what it is for social media is about finding your niche and finding your brand's niche and what's going to make the difference for your viewers and for the people that are going to follow you. So here's a reflection of my numbers across platforms. As you can see by the numbers, Instagram is my main form of engaging with my viewers and engaging with brands. However, it is not actually the highest achieving of all my following. So TikTok is on the other hand. And I think TikTok has very much grown in popularity over this past 2 years actually. But my following and when I achieved that was far before that time. I remember when I was still studying in journalism, I started going to TikTok. I started creating content because I've always been a fan of video creating and I liked that idea. But for most people, when they heard of TikTok, they're like, okay, this is for teenagers. It is childish. There was just this whole stereotype around it. And I think every different social media has that form of stereotype. Like Instagram is for influencers, pretty people. That's what it is. Facebook more so for the older community, and TikTok for the youth. But that's not also a bad thing, because you don't want to just appeal to a specific age bracket. Maybe yes, for your company, but I feel ultimately for our company and what we want to achieve, the youth can be very influential. I mean, it's the same reason why stores like Woolworths and Pick n Pay had to move sweets from the shopping aisles when you're going to pay by the tills, because children can be so influential to parents' decision making and the likes. So I'm very broad in terms of where I like to follow social media, because of, one, the fear that I have for any social media platform to become like Vine, MySpace, Mixit, or BBM. They just disappear. And then what happens to your content? What happens to everything you've created? And that's also why I have a personal website where I like to curate all this, because autonomy is so important in creating your online identity, even if it isn't where you're getting your numbers, but it can be where people find you easily, especially in Google searches. So this video over here that I've created once upon a time, I won't play it for you guys, but it is the one TikTok video that secured me in my following. Very, very embarrassing, very lame. I teased them about my parents giving me a brand new Porsche, and in fact it's a Porsche USB. And that lame, poorly edited, poor quality video gained me 1.2 million views, which is insane. If you're talking about trying to achieve reach, that same number for my company where I work would be amazing, because that virality is very hard to do. And I remember I listened to Tyrone, I think it is, his chat on SEOs and search engines and stuff like that. And he was talking about his content's virality. And after that, and what he didn't mention was what to do next. What is the next step when you have that following come and see your content? What are you going to do to make them stay and make them want to engage further? And I also had the question of, okay, is this going to become my brand? Is this what I do? Content that I don't actually really relate to, but it was a one-time joke. Then later that year, I also wrote something in the middle of the peak of gender-based violence in 2019. It was just 2 lines that I'd written after everything that happened with Uyinene, and it went viral. I didn't expect it. I'd written it down, posted it to my social media, left my phone to the side and went to gym to go and swim. Couldn't swim for too long because of the fact that it felt like drowning at a certain point because of everything that was going on. And then as I left the pool, got catcalled by 12-year-olds, which was just fantastic. Came back and this had blown up. And mainly by women, yes, because of the relatability, I suppose, because of this shared sense of loss as our rainbow nation. But it went viral. And what followed were translations of it into Afrikaans and other languages, getting read out in Parliament, it becoming main pieces in articles. It was insane. I couldn't believe that something that I had created from pain had the ability to touch people because of social media. Especially because I was in this phase of journalism where I was like, I'm not as good a writer as everyone. My marks aren't reflecting it. What do I do? And I think that's the beautiful thing about social media for so many content creators, is that it is the platform that allows people to be seen like they'd never be seen otherwise, to get a reach like they wouldn't ever get. And it does allow more people to, without profession, do something that they love. So I had to question, though, what could I have done to make this more impactful to me, to my personal brand? Not necessarily to other people, because I loved what it did for other people. But I had so many friends in the social media sphere that was like, why didn't you put your actual name there? Why didn't you put your handle? You would have gained so many followers. Because if you see over here, these are people that tagged me. There were so many people that didn't tag me, that shared my content. And you can't ever truly know your reach with online, and that's the unfortunate thing, unless you really track it. So let's talk about how to grow an audience, especially one you actually want, because I think when developing your brand, so much of the time you can just get a follower. And you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. But who is a follower that's actually going to engage with your content? Following is cool, but engagement is better. So with me and brands that I've worked with before, I've had to define my niche, because you can look at my page and you can think, okay, cool. She has great content. She's likable. That's great. But what makes people want to stay? What makes people want to send you an email saying, please, can I work with you? Let's take that next step. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of reflection on your physicality. So for me, that was identifying that my big hair, my larger than model standard body, and my good makeup ability was something that I had in my favor, specifically in our current climate of beauty and how we're moving. And then I also had what I actually wanted to offer, which was my views on gender-based violence, working with women empowerment, my part and membership of the LGBTQ plus community, something that a recent brand has just come to me about, which is a self-love campaign. And I think it's beautiful that brands are moving in the trajectory where they no longer just want pretty. Yes, pretty sells, but I don't know, it's just not, it's not it or where it is anymore. And also I want to be funny and I want to be able to share my social media know-how. Oddly enough, I had someone come up to me today and they were like, why are you giving this meeting? Why did you get asked to do this meeting? Like, what do you actually know? And I was like, well, okay, thanks. Thank you so much. But honestly, I think the fact that you knew to ask me speaks for itself. It's because I am putting everything that I do on social media. I want people to see the good I'm doing, what I'm creating. And even if it's not the best, and this is something I have to deal with myself all the time. So much of the time, I look at content creators, I'm like, you're not that funny. What is this? What are you doing? But you have to shift from that mindset, because you can't be judging people that are doing more than you. You can only judge people that are doing less. So if you're not getting out there, if you're not creating the content, you can't complain that someone with lesser work than yours is not giving you, or is getting more than you, or more qualified, more followers, more work, because you're not out there. You're not wanting to be seen. And that can be a massive challenge, especially when creating content. Okay, next, let's move on. You have to be reliable. Do your followers know when to expect you? So you guys say that this is a monthly occurrence. Do you post this on your personal platforms, your personal business platforms? Is this something you engage with personally? Do you engage if people have questions? Or do you ask questions? Do your followers know what they could be getting from your social media platforms? Then don't let your social media be the middleman. I think so many of the time I see social media posts that are like, visit this page to get more information or to get information, rather than giving information and then asking more at a later stage. Are your social media platforms actually helping people achieve what they want to achieve by following you? Okay, so I had a look at this poster because this is all I got tagged in for this little meeting, and I appreciate it nonetheless. So LinkedIn is the place I got tagged in, and nowhere else, which is interesting because personally, in terms of my following, it is the least out of everything. I think it's about 200, 300 around about there in terms of what I could be giving to you. Like, this knowledge that I'm imparting now isn't all I can give. I could give part of my following, part of my engagement, and give that to your brand. But how are you engaging it? Could you be engaging it more on other platforms like Instagram or Facebook, where I could share what you guys are actually doing? I also had a look to see you guys don't have an eQuills page. I also looked at some of your video content, which is also just text-based. What more could you be doing to get the most out of social media as a multimedia platform through music, through sound? It is so cool that eQuills is doing a podcast, but you could be putting even just snips of the most important information that people are imparting onto those pages. So then your followers can look at your work and think, hey, that actually helps me. Knowing that TikTok's algorithm has forced Reels to now change how they structure. And if you have watermarks and more eerie footage, it's less likely to appear on the feed. That helps me. That helps me know what I want to do, how to create more, how to be more seen. So there is more to know. There is so much more to know, and so much more that can be done within your brand as well to be making the most. And I think that's true of everyone. I mean, I have so many things I could say to myself to be like, Zoe, if you post more at better times, if you do more face content, because images with faces in it tend to do better on every social media platform, you will get more followers, you will get more views if you actually just engage. But I think that's hard to be said and done because, you know, we're human. We have families, we have lives, we have time we don't want to be wasting on social media. And I think I know better than anyone that once I am done with my work for the day and the phone goes to the side and I never want to touch it again. But it's just how the world is forcing us to change. And yes, we can be resistant to it, or we can move with it if that is something that you want to do. But if not, more power to you, because I wish I could spend less time on social media. And that is it from me. Thank you so much for your time, and any questions I'd love to answer and engage.
You spoke about us. Like you put us on the spot, like near the end of your presentation.
Reactions. I was saying things and I was like, please, like, give me bad faces, and I don't even know.
No, I love it. Like, I actually wanted to know from you, like, so seeing that we are quite, visually based, like we have these webinars that we host every month, and then we have the podcast, and we also want to add written content as well. We already have a blog up that myself and Jodi Harry wrote. So what is your advice in terms of like growing our social media presence? Do you think we should create a Facebook and Instagram? Do you think it's necessary for a Twitter? What do you think we should post on them? Should we post like the links to the podcast episodes with a nice design or thumbnail? Do you think we should have snippets of the stuff? What is your advice in terms of growing eQuills?
Well, yes, definitely. I think you could do more. Okay, I'm not too much a fan of Facebook anymore, but in terms of our company and depending on what part of South Africa you actually want to market to, it's very dependent on that. So I feel like in terms of being exposed to like-minded thinkers, Twitter could be very beneficial. I think if you're looking to work with more of South Africa, we tend to do most of our competitions on Afternoon Express on Facebook, just for the fact that it's more accessible to most of South Africa. So lower income Black people with Facebook Lite, we can't even post video content because of the fact that Facebook Lite, which is the cheaper data form, is just doesn't allow that. So what images you choose can even play a major role. So I think in terms of creating multimedia content, I think Instagram could be very beneficial. Do you have a specific target market which you guys want to interact with? Or is it more? Yes, sorry.
I think our target market, like I said in the beginning of the session, is like writers, editors, creators, and of all ages. We don't discriminate in terms of age or gender or anything. So those types of people who are interested in learning about new topics and kind of broadening their knowledge and maybe their skill set as well. So that's kind of the people that we want to reach, who also want to, what's the word to use now? To consume these multimedia kind of aspects of eQuills or content.
If you look at both TikTok and you look at Reels, they have limited their content to 15 seconds, mostly because nobody actually wants to watch something far longer than that. If they do, then they will watch longer. But most people, especially younger people, will swipe right past it and not get to the crux of what's being said. Same with news headlines. People read the headlines and sometimes like, okay, thanks, News 24, on to the next. You think you know. So creating short content might be more beneficial. And then if people are genuinely interested in this sort of structure, in these meeting structures, then maybe having a portal for them to actually get this content. But any snippet could really help. I hope that helps.
Definitely, that's really helpful. I see, Say, do you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you so much, Zoe, for that insightful presentation. It kind of broadened my understanding of you and your social media presence. I mean, my question is around, you started off working mostly on your own personal brand, personal platforms, and growing your influence on the different platforms. But how have you found working with brands? Specifically with your work with SABC3, what are some of the insights that you've gained about working with brands that have like shifted your thinking about how they use social media?
I think it was very difficult for me to come fresh out of university with no previous work experience and then start telling brands that, listen, your approach to social media isn't going to work. Telling people that are older than me, you know, because there's the sense of I want to respect you and I want to know what you know. But sometimes you do have more insight than them. You do have more to offer because sometimes quantity isn't quality and you need to be able to say that to them. And there's a lot of times where brands will come with an issue, like, why wasn't there www before the website? Now people can't get into the website. And you have to be like, no, click, please click. And that's, I think, been one of the most frustrating things that people, especially in social media, tend to think less of it and tend to think less of the potential of it. And that's frustrating, especially when you look post to post and you're like, okay, 67 likes, that's not great. But then you do the monthly report, and maybe that's also something that I should mention, that if you are going to do the route of quantity, it will eventually equal numbers. I was doing a report today for, what brand was it? McCain, and typically on average 100 likes a post. And I don't know if that's high or low for everyone, but for a page with 250,000 followers, that's not high. But then you do the numbers and it's over 100,000 reach by the end of it. So just get started. You can grow that numbers anytime. It just takes the initiative.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I see Colin also has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Zoe. This is a really fascinating and energizing presentation. So it's really appreciate the time and thought you put into it. So, I mean, what really struck me was that slide at the beginning where you had the personal and the, you know, and the company side by side. And I mean, it seems to me that what I take away from what you're saying as somebody who's no expert in this field at all, is that there's a real interplay between the personal and the professional, if you like, and that, you know, thinking about the two of them in parallel and how they overlap actually is important, you know. And I imagine, you know, I was really struck by your post on, you know, on there's no rainbow, only rain, and how that went viral and how it impacted people, and how, you know, that's kind of you putting your authentic voice and your truth out into the world. And so I just wonder, you know, I mean, just to give you a little snippet of what we've been up to in our company, you know, we've been encouraging people to write in their own voices. So, you know, we write for clients, you know, the World Bank and big commercial organizations and so on. So we're doing a lot of professional writing, but actually we found it was very important to encourage people to write poetry and memoirs and short fiction and essays on issues that they care about. And that actually connects to their voice and their authenticity and their passion and makes them better writers in the professional sphere as well. So I just wonder, is there an insight from all of that for how we all go about social media? You know, should we be actually blurring the boundary between the personal and the professional? Should we be tapping into the issues that we care about as individuals? You know, getting that out there through whatever medium, you know, being willing to be controversial, being willing to be creative in our expression, and actually take a leaf out of your book and be much bolder about the thing. Yeah, that was my question.
I think brands are moving. They are willing to stand with Black Lives Matter and stand with gay rights, and they're being out there with their beliefs. I mean, if that's not your beliefs, you're more likely to get beaten down and like what's the word, cancelled on social media. So I think you should be very careful with how close that border can sometimes be. But I think you see how when someone is racist on Twitter, how their jobs are destroyed, like their reputation is ruined. I think there's really, it's so difficult if you're on social media to go back to not having your voice be influential to your personal brand and your work life and your professional life. I mean, you can see, so we're part of the Espresso Cordova company, and you can see from that even how one person's personal life could mess up everything with their work. And it's unfortunate, is because if you were any other person, your personal decisions wouldn't be affecting your work environment. But if you're choosing to try and be the most, try and be a role model, try to help people, you should be doing that. You should be creating content that makes people feel secure and safe. I mean, sure, I think back in the day when my parents were still very much homophobic, repressed, I mean, not to say that they're not now, but my parents used to warp my mind as to think that if you were to fail at something, if someone wasn't to like something that you did, it's because of your own personal choices. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's what people are looking for anymore. I mean, I've been selected for a campaign with Essence because of my belonging to the LGBTQ plus community. So you have to become one and the same with your work these days, especially for writers, especially for creators, because creating an authentic voice is so difficult to do if you're not doing it on social media and on your platforms. I mean, if you look at writers like Glennon Doyle, people love her. They buy her books. They relate to her. When actors, artists go live on social media, they're inviting people into their lives, especially in COVID. You can't be separating your worlds if that's what you want to do. I hope that helped.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I'll just add one more thing. So funny, it's so interesting. I was thinking to you guys, I don't know if anyone's read this book, Bernardine Evaristo's book, Girl, Woman, Other, that won the Booker Prize last year. But just last night, I was reading the chapter in which a young trans person tells their story on social media, and it goes viral, and they get a million followers and so on. So it's so interesting that storytelling of social media now weaving into long form writing. So there's another kind of blurring of boundaries.
I mean, I think I have someone that I studied with who she just published a poetry book, but her poetry became viral at the same time mine did with the gender-based violence. So, I mean, it can be very affirming to have that moment on social media to think, okay, what I say matters. Something that I thought about, that I considered, touches other people. And I think especially under COVID, it's so difficult for you to say, okay, something that I did made a difference, because if you're not seeing the person's face and you're on your presentation, so you can't see the meeting spaces, then what?
Fantastic. Thanks, Zoe.
And yes, your hand is up as well.
Yeah, thanks, Zoe. It's a great presentation. I thought of putting my hand up about being a social media person, but then the last time I was a social media person was before Instagram, and when Facebook and Twitter were only about a year old in South Africa. So, but I'm interested in how using social media might vary depending on what you do. So, I mean, it relates a bit to what Colin was saying about, I mean, most of us in this group are writers, and, mostly focusing on kind of corporate type writing, but also perhaps wanting to express ourselves creatively as well. So I'm just wondering how you see kind of social media being used differently depending on whether you're kind of in the entertainment industry or in a more, serious knowledge-based industry, or in a kind of purely creative, creative writing or art or whatever. And
that's for me.
Relating to the sort of different use of platforms and also the different way you might use those platforms.
Could you repeat your question, please? I think the signal broke down.
So just in terms of kind of the different using social media in different industries. So, we kind of, as professionals, we work in kind of a knowledge industry, but we're also maybe looking at, perhaps like a side hustle for our creative endeavors, should we say. And there's kind of different kind of work personalities or individual personalities, which are both authentic, but maybe require different approaches to social media. I'm interested in what you think about that.
No, 100%. I've just last week, I revived my blog and started writing more because I don't just want to be a social media person. I want to be able to also, like you maybe, create more, something I'm passionate about, because you can't just solely be focused on social media if this is my life. And I think maybe that's also what you're talking about, a yearning to do more, create more. So 100%, I would give it a go. How did you want to do that? Like long form writing or perhaps more short form?
So I guess a combination. I mean, at the moment, I've written the odd post, but I don't have, I have an old blog from 2007, 2008, which kind of became redundant, which was actually about social media marketing and politics and stuff. But I've kind of moved on from that content, so that might be something that I revisit, but perhaps on a brand new, with a brand new brand rather than reviving the old blog. But also, I've seen that Fanula Darling, who we did a creative writing course with in Feb, she posts her poetry to Instagram. She's an Insta poet, and that might be something that I might look into doing, just to kind of share and see where it goes and what happens.
If I was smart after my poem went viral on social media, I would have written more. I would have posted more, because obviously if people are enjoying that content, then maybe that's something I should have actually invested in doing more of. But I think there is always this fear that, what if I look like I'm that person, like I'm trying? I think there's such a fear of people on social media to be like, oh no, I'm trying too hard. And I think that's the difference between people who are good at social media and people who are great at social media. We'll have people come into studio and you can tell from how I'm photographing them that, okay, this person, they've come in because their story is amazing and this is their first interview on the show. They'll be casual, like, do I have to take a photo? Oh no, please don't do that. Whereas when you get like experienced models or content creators, they're just like, okay, perfect. Can I get one over there too? The lighting's better from this side. So you have people that are firm in what they want and how they want to be seen. And I think that's what needs to be done. You just need to be courageous enough to say, okay, I'm doing with intention. I'm just going to go out and I'm going to do there. And if it's 2 people that are following me, that's at least 2 people whose lives I could be changing because they care about my content.
I wanted to ask something about poetry and creative writing. So I know that your poem was on a card, like a social media card or design. So I wanted to know, like, do you think that's best practice or best to do when it comes to publishing a poem or sharing a poem on Instagram or on social media? Do you think it's best to rather create a design with a poem on there, the person's face, or a beautiful picture, whatever design, or just having the post as like or the poem as like a post, like a wordy post, and then just adding a image with it? Like, what do you think one should do in that regard?
Look, I think with that book in specific, I didn't even write a caption because part of me wanted to be detached from what I'd given to people. It was like, because that's what I felt it needed to be in that moment. And also I didn't like overthink, like this is something I want to put out there. But then when I look at actual poets that do it on their social media, like the cow or something like that, they have a very specific style with the doodles. And if you want to create a specific style where people are like, yeah, that's Lucian's poetry, then go for it. But if you could even do more, like create video content, have someone actually speaking the poetry, that would also be nice. I think creating diversity is very good for any brand, because people don't just want to see the same shot, they want to be surprised.
Thank you so much for that, Zoe. I see Bradley also has his hand up.
Hi everyone. Hi Zoe. I wanted to know how important is early branding, especially if you're starting out a new page and you plan your company or you plan to sell a certain product. How important is that early branding, like your first post, your second post?
I really don't think your first post or your second post matters. Like I said, you just start. There was one. If you look at YouTube and you look at YouTubers that have been in the game for a long time, if you go back to their first post, horrible, absolutely horrible. They're not funny. They're not. There's no video quality. Nothing. Yeah. So it is scarier now, because when you look at social media, far more people, because of their phones and because of the capabilities of their phones, it looks like they're creating quality content. But it doesn't have to be like that. That fear shouldn't stop you, because if you have a message, if people think you're funny, you will get that. And it's also just about actually creating content constantly, rather so than just one-time post. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And regarding theme pages, I only found out like a few weeks ago that people are actually making money and scaling theme pages depending on your niche, like wealth, and get the beauty and get the creative side.
Wait, sorry, will you repeat what you said?
I'm saying that I never knew people can actually scale certain pages, like the theme pages, like your motivational pages or your health and beauty pages, and people are actually scaling it.
No, 100%. I had a call on TikTok the other day, and because we've just gotten our both of our shows verified on TikTok, and it's not how it was before. Before on TikTok, there was a little button that you could say, please verify me, and that would be it. But nowadays they've removed the verification button. So as much as you'd want to try it, you can't do it. They contacted us personally asking because we're now a partner of TikTok. So if we want to get verified, it's this whole new form. So I think that's also why you should strike early, just because of the fact that the sooner you strike, the more likely you are to achieve success. Because what if that platform you're thinking of just changes overnight, like TikTok did in 2 years, completely changed the game. So definitely strike when the iron's hot. And also, that's what I was actually going to say about TikTok. They said, if you want any videos from us boosted, then just let us know. So yes, there's such control in the algorithm of what people get to see, which is good and bad at the same time. Yes, Lucian. I'm sorry, did that answer?
Yeah, that answer, thanks.
You're welcome.
I just have a question, taking it back to like a company page, just like Bradley also mentioned now. I know you mentioned in your presentation that you shouldn't always, correct me if I'm wrong, but you shouldn't always just like, you said quality is better than quantity. So would you say that one has to like take time before posting things to your social media, so kind of refine it before you just post? Because you said now in the beginning you should just start and whatever. So what is your view on that in terms of like a company's social media? Do you think we should post as much as we can? Do you think we should have like a focus more on quality than quantity? So posting like having 2 posts like in a month or something? Like, what is, I hope I'm making sense now, but what is your take on that?
Well, depends how much you want to get out of your social media. I definitely think posting once a week would already boost the page somehow. I don't know if that's practical for your company or not. But you definitely don't, because the less you post, the lower you'll be on the algorithm, and because people aren't engaging with your actual content. What's your average Instagram likes on a post? Like between 1 and 10, like around there. Even within your company, I would suggest that you guys interact with your Instagram pages more, because that already would boost it far more to what it's actually receiving. We speak with our presenters all the time about that nobody's gonna believe in what we're saying if you guys aren't believing what we're saying. So you sharing our content says that, hey, this is engaging content. And the same can be said for any other brand. If the company invests in what they do socially, then it will filter out. Sometimes it's just about spreading the knowledge and not actually just about, I've lost track of where I was.
Thank you so much for that. Like, Colin, you have something to add to that as well?
Yeah, so just a question. So social media is social, right? People are responding, people are sharing ideas, people are sparking imagination and contribution of their own. I mean, I'm really interested to know how you, Zoë, take all of that, that feedback, that contribution, that conversation, and put it into your own work and your own writing and your own thinking, and is there a lesson there for us as well, that social media is not just about us pushing our content and ideas and everything out to the world, but actually benefiting from the conversation and allowing that to enrich, what we write in turn?
100%. I think it's easier for our show, and maybe it would be for you guys to do it. I don't know, how do you approach writers? What's the platform you use to engage with writers? Do you expect them to come to your company, or do you look out for them?
Kind of, yeah, a mix of the two, really. Yeah, I mean, we're constantly doing both, I think. Yeah.
Do they know that if they were to, I don't know, tag your site, that would be attention to them? They could have success in writing. So maybe just being outward about all the possibilities on your social media will also help grow it.
Do you want to just repeat that? Like, we kind of cut off there for a bit.
From where? I was just saying, if you look, do you tell your viewers or anyone who was to stumble onto your page, say a budding writer, that if they were to approach the social media page either through an email that's linked to your IG or by sliding into your DMs, that could be beneficial to them? That's also something to consider. Like, perhaps you have a hashtag that people could use if they want to be discovered as a writer, and you could go through a process of elimination rather than filtering out through every writer that's out there. Creating a platform that allows people to come to you. So I think that's what our brand has tried to do, where if someone says something to us online, we might take it and incorporate it into the show. Or if they do a TikTok challenge with us, then they might be seen on TV. We encourage communication in everything we do. When we give an outro link for a segment, we're like, tell us what you think on social media. Are you punting your social media? Both hard sells and soft sells as well. Because, I mean, I was punting my social media to you guys in a soft sell as well. Just because you should always be conscious of what you have to contribute. Because maybe you guys aren't going to be like, wow, she's the greatest writer in the world. But you know of me now. You know what I can do. And I think that's why people like Lucian will come to me, or other people who have asked to do podcasts as well, is because, no, maybe I'm not actually doing the most, but I make you think I'm doing the most. And that's what it is. So yeah, badly.
Promise is the last question.
No.
If you had 0 followers today and you start out a brand, besides using paid ads, how will you actually gain followers? Would you go the route of going to competitors or following people in the niche that you are in and following them, or what will you do?
That's a very good question. One, I would never suggest sponsored ads because people don't actually enjoy that. Like, who has ever actually gained a follow from Instagram ads unless you're giving out thirst traps? So no, I wouldn't do that. And yeah, I know a lot of influencers that will, like and unlike people's content, but that is definitely not what I like. A lot of micro influencers will email brands themselves and be like, hey, if you didn't know about me, here I am. And that's also a possibility if you're actually creating content that supports it. Because I think that is a possibility for anyone, because if you have content that's engaging, if you are creating quality video in any capacity, there is potential. It's like Majumbo. I don't know if you know her on social media.
Yeah.
She lockdown success story. She gained followers like that. She then went international. She's now involved with Vogue. She got sent Fenty from Rihanna. Anything is possible at any point in your life. Yes, it's going to be really difficult because this is a very saturated market. But if you have the content to support it, nothing is impossible.
Thanks.
Sure.
Darius, you have a question as well?
Yeah, I just want to echo the appreciation that everybody's shown you. I think you're a marvel. You shared so much, so succinctly. It was truly brilliant in your presentation, and your evident knowledge since then in answering questions has been fantastic. And I underline that your makeup is stunning. But my question is a very technical one, perhaps. It's just that you mentioned the watermark, and I didn't actually follow your point there.
Okay, so if you were to save any content from TikTok, so if you go onto TikTok and you save a video, that's one thing that's very unique to TikTok, is you can save your content. It will give you the TikTok watermark on that bit of content. And if you were to post it anywhere else, it would be far less high resolution than on TikTok itself. So because of that, the algorithm picks up that watermark on. So now you take that TikTok video and you go to Instagram. If you post that on your Reel, because Reel is the same function as TikTok, it's Instagram attempting to do TikTok basically. If you post it there, it is far less likely that people will see that on their feed because of how the algorithm works and picks up that watermark. So that's what I'm saying. So if you were to create real content, then that would help you. If you just, without the watermark on the app itself, they notice that and they boost that up. So when IGTV came out, IGTV is 3-minute long Instagram videos. They push that to the top of your newsfeed. So that's what you were constantly being forced to see, because they want to support their new structure. They want people to embrace it. Same with Reel. Once you put out the Reels, it would go to the top. But because people started taking their TikToks, because it's actually a nicer tool to use in order of getting sounds and engaging, and they started using that instead of creating their own Reels, TikTok wants to counteract that by setting up their own algorithms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Anyone else have questions or comments?
No. One last technical question. You're clearly managing quite a lot of platforms. What tools do you use to kind of switch between personal and office and across the different platforms?
I've had to, back in the day, I would have a couple of drinks in and I would just post to my Instagram. I have to double, triple, and quadruple check that little icon in the corner says my name before I do anything, because I think that's my biggest fear, is that I'm going to accidentally post my drunk photos to my work platform. So it's very difficult to keep that distinction, especially under COVID, where everything is on social media. You have to go there, and there's just, okay, WhatsApp, what's next, everything. So that's a struggle. Creator Studio really helps, and Twitter Library. So I don't know how much you use of it, but every app has a Creator Studio or a Media Studio where you can schedule content, you can prep content, you can see, get your engagement. You can see what's working for you, what your viewers actually like. Like if I looked at my own personal account, my viewers like my bikini shots more so, and it's not even guys. It's women as well, because it's less so about the ooh that's hot and more so about the self-love. So identifying and maybe going into business modes, because I don't know if your Instagram page is a business account or not, but viewing those algorithms, viewing those insights, saying, oh, this got the furthest reach because people found this the most useful, that really helps you as a brand to define what you are, what you need, and what you should keep doing.
Yes. Michelle, I see you also have a question.
Mine was really just a comment to reiterate what everyone else has said, and I could honestly listen to you for another hour, because the more you talk, the more I realize how little I know and how much more there is to learn. And I've never in all my life heard the term thirst trap before. I've just been Googling it, which proves to you that I'm not on TikTok. But thank you very, very much. It was really, really interesting.
Thank you so much.
Social media is clearly important when attracting potential clients and establishing a brand people can trust. So, what are you waiting for? Start growing your social media presence today. Tune in next time for another episode of the eQuills podcast.